BS for Your Soul. 8 Things I Believe. By Darnell Ishmel. Copyright 2024 by Darnell Ishmel. All rights reserved. No part of this book may be used or reproduced by any means, graphic, electronic, or mechanical, including photocopying, recording, taping, or by any information storage retrieval system, without the written permission of the publisher except in the case of brief quotations embodied in critical articles and reviews. Table of Contents. Acknowledgements. 1. Introduction Beyond the Pew. 2. Chapter 1. Levels of Cognizance, Thinking, Believing, and Knowing. 9. A Hymn to the Three Paths. 12. Chapter 2. Knowing Through Experience. 1-5 The Tapestry of Knowing. 17. Chapter 3. Finding Yourself in Knowing. 21. The Strength of Knowing. 23. Chapter 4. Grace and Human Imperfection. 27. The Infinite Grace. 29. Chapter 5. Made in the Image and Likeness of God. 33. In the Image of Grace. 35. Chapter 6. Spots and wrinkles add to the beauty of life. 39. The Brushstrokes of Grace. 41. Chapter 7. All of who I am is a gift from God. 45. The Gift of Being. 47. Hymn of the Divine Reflection. 50. Chapter 8. God is well pleased with my life. 53. In the Eyes of God. 55. Chapter 9. Goddess Disappointment in my lack of trust. 59. The Bridge of Grace. 61. Chapter 10. My Shortcomings Invite God's Grace and Strength. 65. The Beauty in Our Cracks. 67. The Strength in Our Cracks. 71. Chapter 1. God is love, and love with others mirrors God. 73. The Flame of Love. 75. Love as the Thread of Life. 78. Chapter 1-2. Morality as a Socio-Political Construct. 81. The Mask of Morality. 83. True morality is freedom. 86. Chapter 1-3. Moral codes reflect self-interest. 89. The Distorted Reflection. 91. The Reflection of Control. 94. Chapter 1-4. Conscience is the Voice of God in Nature. 97. The Whisper Within. 99. Chapter 1-5. True morality is the whisper of conscience. 103. The Whispering Light. 105. Chapter 1-6. Morality is for self-examination, not judgment of others. 109. Chapter 1-7. Doctrines and rituals lack power to change or save. 115. Chapter 1-8. The ever-unfolding mystery of God's grace. 121. The Ocean of Grace. 123. Closing Reflections, A Living Faith. 127. 1. Acknowledgements. I would acknowledge the people and experiences that have shaped my journey of faith. To the many conversations, travels, and reflections that have led me to where I am today, I offer my deepest gratitude. This book is as much a product of the relationships I have formed with others as it is a reflection of my personal spiritual journey. 2. Introduction. Beyond the Pew. For many, faith is an intimate experience, rooted in the sanctity of shared spaces and traditions, temples, churches, synagogues, or mosques. But over time, I came to see that my connection to the divine could not be contained within four walls or defined by rituals alone. The doctrines I once followed so closely began to feel hollow, their promises empty without a deeper personal exploration of my relationship with God, the world, and myself. I found myself asking, why had we never questioned the doctrines of men? Why did we not interrogate papal creeds or explore beyond the traditions handed down through generations? It became clear to me that churchmanship, the mere adherence to religious structures, was meaningless without true connection. Relationships with the people and the planet, beyond the pew, were where I began to find God's presence more profoundly. As I wrestled with my faith, I reached a point where I needed something more or nothing at all. I couldn't continue to practice faith as a spectator. I needed to seek truth, not only in the world around me but within myself. This collection of beliefs is a culmination of that journey, my personal affirmation of faith. It is not intended to proselytize, nor is it a declaration of ultimate truth for anyone but myself. Instead, it is a point of clarification and conversation, an open window into how I see the world and the divine within it. Here, I share my beliefs as a reflection of my evolving relationship with God, humanity, and the earth. It is my hope that by reading these beliefs, others may feel encouraged to embark on their own journeys of self-reflection, faith, and discovery. 3. Chapter 1: Levels of Cognizance, Thinking, Believing, and Knowing. I believe there are 3 levels of cognizance. 1. To think, 2. To believe, 3. To know. The concept of 3 levels of cognizance, thinking, believing, and knowing, offers a progression in human understanding. At the basic level, thinking engages the intellect and opens the door to reflection and analysis. Believing goes deeper, involving an emotional and spiritual investment in something beyond logic. Finally, knowing is the culmination, rooted in personal experience. This mirrors many ancient and modern belief systems, where wisdom is not merely theoretical but must be lived to be fully understood. Many traditions, from Eastern mysticism to Western philosophy, emphasize the transition from conceptual knowledge to experiential wisdom as the highest form of truth. Chapter 2: Knowing through experience. I believe knowing comes only by way of experience. In many spiritual traditions, knowledge gained through experience holds a place of primacy. Mystics and sages across cultures have often described a path where one moves from intellectual acceptance of divine truths to a personal, transformative encounter with them. This experiential knowing is often viewed as a direct communion with the divine, where understanding is no longer abstract but becomes embodied in one's life. Chapter 3: Finding Yourself in Knowing. I believe finding yourself is in knowing, and knowing is strength. This belief is a reflection on the journey of self-discovery. True strength comes from knowing oneself deeply. The process of knowing brings clarity, and with clarity comes resilience. Through knowing, we gain the power to move through life with purpose. Chapter 4: Grace and Human Imperfection. I believe God's grace is greater than all my sins, bigger than my habits and behaviors, and broader than the scope of my transgressions. This chapter emphasizes the vastness and boundlessness of God's grace. It reassures that grace covers all imperfections and shortcomings, extending beyond the limitations of human behavior and the mistakes we make. Chapter 5: The Image of God in Human Imperfection. I believe even, and most especially, with all my spots and wrinkles, I am made in the very image and likeness of God. This belief affirms that despite our imperfections, we remain reflections of God's image. Our spots and wrinkles do not detract from our divinity but rather add richness and uniqueness to who we are. Chapter 6: Spots and Wrinkles in God's Masterpiece. I believe my spots and wrinkles add color, definition, texture, and distinction to God's great art project called my life, for which ultimately God is both author and finisher. This chapter expands on the metaphor of life as an artistic work. Our imperfections add depth and beauty to the canvas of life, and God, as the ultimate artist, uses these imperfections to create something meaningful and beautiful. Chapter 7: All of who I am is a gift from God. I believe everything I am, inclusive of my personality, my sexuality, and my physical body, is a gift from, a reflection of, and a complement. 5. To the will of God, the nature of God and character of God, even unto God's very self, and whatever I do with the gift of all that I am is my gift back to God. This belief celebrates the self as a sacred gift from God, with all its facets, physical, emotional, and spiritual. Everything that makes up who we are is part of the divine plan, and how we use those gifts is our offering back to the Creator. Chapter 8. God is well pleased with my life. I believe that, for the most part, God is well pleased with my life and the majority of the choices I've made. This chapter reflects on the idea that God finds pleasure in our efforts, even in our imperfections. It affirms the belief that God is not focused on our failures but on the overall trajectory of our lives, which brings satisfaction when lived with sincerity. Chapter 9. God's disappointment in my lack of trust. I believe that God's greatest disappointment in me comes as a result of my failure to constantly trust in, rely on, and rest upon the full measure of grace, peace, and pardon God's sacrificed Son on the cross of Calvary affords my life, my choices, and my eternal destiny. This belief centers on the idea that God desires us to trust fully in His grace and sacrifice. The disappointment is not in our imperfections, but in our reluctance to fully accept the gift of grace offered through Christ's sacrifice. Chapter 10. The Strength of Weakness. I believe my shortcomings, in both belief and behavior, help make full extension of God's grace, my failings, full measure of God's mercy, my wayfarings, full allegiance of God's love, and my weakness, full metal of God's strength. 6. This chapter explores how our weaknesses invite the full power of God's grace, mercy, and love into our lives. It highlights the idea that human vulnerability is not a flaw but a space for divine strength to manifest. Chapter 11. God is love, and love with others mirrors God. I believe God is love, and that when we live in love with others, we express, share, celebrate, enjoy, imitate, and emulate God. This belief presents love as the highest expression of God. When we live in love, we are reflecting the very essence of God's nature, and in doing so, we create sacred connections with others. Chapter 12. Morality as a sociopolitical construct. I believe morality, as I've known and experienced it, is a sociopolitical construct misused and abused by those in positions of power to legislate, dictate, mandate, and impose their own power agenda on the private lives of other people. This chapter critiques morality as a tool often manipulated by those in power. It calls for an examination of how moral systems are constructed and invites a deeper search for genuine ethical living beyond imposed codes. Chapter 13. Moral codes reflect self-interest. I believe the moral code of man is both reflexive and self-recriminating, having more to do with man's agenda for others to reach man's own self-interpreted and self-imposed notion of a divine superlative and very little to do with how people, including such a man, actually live and lead their lives. This belief reflects on the hypocrisy often found in moral systems, where individuals impose standards on others that they do not live by themselves. It challenges the notion of moral superiority based on external codes. 7. Chapter 14. Conscience as the voice of God in nature. I believe one's conscience is the voice of God in nature and that we should hear clearly and obey it. This chapter emphasizes the sacredness of conscience as a divine voice, urging individuals to listen and act upon their inner moral compass, which is an expression of God's will. Chapter 15. True morality as self-examination. I believe that true morality is the whispering voice and self-examined witness of conscience. This belief builds on the previous one, asserting that morality is not about external judgments but about the internal process of self-examination and growth. True morality comes from within. Chapter 16. True morality is the whisper of conscience. I believe true morality is not a system for the examination of others and their division into good and bad people, but rather it is chiefly a system for the examination of ourselves. This chapter continues the theme of internal reflection, positioning morality as a personal journey rather than a tool for dividing others into categories of good or bad. Chapter 17. Doctrines and rituals lack power to transform. I believe the doctrines of man, along with the rituals of religion, and even the very expressed and inspired laws of God, though often misinterpreted and misappropriated, do not have any power to change me, deliver me, save me, keep me, strengthen me, protect me, or resurrect me. This belief challenges the notion that external religious structures, doctrines, rituals, and even divinely inspired laws have the power to transform or save an individual. It critiques the reliance on external systems and emphasizes the need for a deeper, more personal connection with God that goes beyond the rituals of organized religion. True transformation is seen as an internal process that cannot be dictated or controlled by human institutions. Chapter 1:8. The Ever-Unfolding Mystery of Grace. I believe in the ever-unfolding, ever-revealing, and ever-incorruptible mystery of God's grace. This final chapter reflects on the boundless and ongoing nature of God's grace. It asserts that grace is a mystery that continues to reveal itself throughout one's life, constantly offering new insights, blessings, and growth. The belief in the incorruptibility of grace reassures that no matter the failings of individuals or institutions, God's grace remains pure, untouched, and available to all. 9. Chapter 1.